Hello, and welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Beverly Boucher Moore, and today I have with me Pastor Andre Pirtle, who is the director of Rainstorm Youth Rescue. And our topic for today is youth, from being rescued to reigning. Welcome, Pastor Pirtle.
Thank you. Thank you.
So listen, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you found yourself going from one place to where you are now working with youth and pastoring?
Thank you for having me here. Well, when I was 19, I gave my life to Christ and I started to follow his teachings. And I come from a low-income neighborhood. I come from poverty. So when God gave me a chance to do something for him, I believe he brought me to the youth. I like to think I'm still young. I'm 26.
Okay.
But I kind of got involved with this program because of a food pantry. So we supply food to a community, and one day, one of the local kids, about 15, he always came in each Saturday, was a known gang member, but he would always come in, and one Saturday he wasn't there. And when we left the pantry that day, we had learned that he was shot down from a rival gang. And because of that, we didn't want to see that happen again. So we started recruiting the kids who were at that age where they joined gangs, and we targeted them. And we wanted to show them the teachings of Christ. We wanted to show them that there's more than life than just what's in this community. And that's how we kind of got started, and that's how we got to this point right now.
Well, listen, so tell us a little bit about Rainstorm Youth Rescue. And the name is very interesting, so I need to know how did the name come about?
And not just me, but when I say me, I want to make it clear that there's a collaboration of people. They just allow me to be the face of it. Amen. But we've all gone through our storms, and I think that sometimes that even as adults we go through things, and we forget that kids go through things. So when we all go through storms, and even in the midst of those storms, I believe God can reign supreme. So we kind of collaborated the words in hopes of what it would initially be, speaking into existence. We want God to reign in the midst of our storms. And that's how we kind of got the name, Rainstorm. So kind of goofy, but it's powerful when you think about it.
Absolutely. If you can tell us about, in this day and age, our youth are faced with a lot. Mm-hmm. They have the enemy coming on every side. So let's talk about the temptations and the kind of enticements that our youth are facing and how you handle that with them.
Oh, man. I don't know if I handle it or if it handles me.
Okay.
But I think in 2017, it's easier for a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old to get a gun than it is to get a job. And that's the issue. It's easier to get a gun than it is to get a job. Even the jobs they can get, it doesn't support their family. A lot of the kids live in single-parent households where it's daddy or either mom raising them, or sometimes neither one, and all they have is a grandparent. And a grandparent can only do so much. So that's one thing we're facing. We're also facing gangs. Kids want to be liked, and they will be loved, and they're going to get attention, whether it's from somebody like us or somebody on the street corner. They're going to get love. So that's another issue we're facing. And I would say a huge issue right now we're facing outside of literacy in Milwaukee is human trafficking. Human trafficking is so big. I think we are literally the only state in America that has 72 counties, and in each one of those counties, there's human trafficking in. So these same kids who you might see on a bus stop, going to school, they're trafficking age.
So what are some of the youth talking with you about concerning trafficking and how they're finding themselves involved?
They're getting recruited. So they're getting recruited by a friend who, when you never have anything, you strive for anything. Yes. You strive for something better yet. So when you see a friend who's the same age as you, with all the things that make you cool, all the things that make you look nice, you kind of ask, how did you get that? And sometimes it's through good parents, and sometimes it's, for lack of a better word, it's through a pimp who supplies you with these things. So kids find themselves in those situations, and they talk to me about it. Gangs is something that kind of runs inside with that too, because the gangs have an alliance with the traffickers. So the kids speak to me about those items, and it's not just inner city kids, it's suburban kids too. I think that's something that
yes, the stigma.
Yeah, absolutely. That there's kids in the inner city, but no, there's a huge amount of kids in the suburbs who get trafficked too. So,
and especially when we have parents that are working, are so busy or so engulfed in what they're dealing with, who's there helping the children reign through these storms?
Absolutely. I agree.
So can you speak to me about, this alternative community and how you are really immersing yourself into this?
When I was a kid, there was this book I read, and I believe the name was "It Takes a Village to Raise a Child." I don't know, it's an African proverb, and I believe that. And the thing is that some of these kids, they don't have a village. They don't have someone they can call and say, "Hey, Daddy, I'm going through this." They don't have a mom that they can say, "Mom, I'm going through this." And even if they do, sometimes Mommy and Daddy are working 40 hours a week, and they come home and they're tired. So what we try to do is provide them with that community that helps them not just with the spirituality of things. I think we've come accustomed to speaking about, Christ, but Christ is now, and he speaks into all of our situations. So if Christ can work in your life and soul, we also believe he can work in your school. We also believe he can work in, you finding housing and food. So we try to meet all of those needs as best as we possibly can.
So what's the typical age of the children that or the youth you're coming in contact with?
We've had to switch the age a couple of different times. So initially it was, what's the age of kids who get recruited into gangs? And shockingly, it's as early as 10.
Yes, absolutely.
By the time they're 16, they got 6 years under their belt of being in a gang or being with these people, so it's harder to get them. And I think if you can get a child while they're young, before they develop character fully, then you can change their life. So it was from 10 to 18. Then the issue was kids age out and they don't have anything to do. So now we haven't stopped it at 18, but we go a little bit further now, depending on the development of.
With children that are ages 10 going up to 18, 19, 20, 21, how do you get them from a lifestyle that they've been accustomed to now living a kingdom lifestyle?
Mm-hmm. I think you only know what you've been taught. You only know what you've been taught. So we need to teach them something different. And I think that kids, they don't learn how kids learned 20 years ago, where you can put a book in front of them and they say, "Oh, I understand this now." You need to show them it. You need to put it in their hands. And what we do is we have leaders who live that lifestyle out. So we won't tell them anything that they don't see us already doing. If we don't do it, then we can't teach it to them. So we live by example, as Christ asks us to.
Do you believe that, most of the young people that you come in contact with, that they really are searching and they really do want something, they do want a better way of life?
Yes. I would say about 85% do. There's a 15% who just want to have fun. Yeah. But, I'd rather have fun with us inside a safe place than having fun on the street corner where bullets rain out. So, yeah, absolutely. I think they are searching for something. I mean, I think we're adults and we're still searching for parts of ourselves inside of Christ. So these kids, they're looking for something. And I believe they think it's a good time. That's what they think, but in our reality, I think they're thirsting for Christ.
So can you tell us how are some of the, or should I say, what are some of the strategies and how do you go about implementing kingdom biblical principles into the program working with the youth?
I mean, that's something that we had to be serious about because it's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day, the week-to-week process. But we live by a few principles. We live life together, and all of these 3 principles, we've based them off what we've seen Christ do. So we live life together. Christ lives with his people.
Yes.
We give ourselves away, and we connect the disconnected. So even when our friends who are connected to us or aren't connected to the Most High, we try to connect them in a way that relates to them. And in these 3 ways, they start to ask questions. So Andre, why do you do that? Why do you call me sweetheart? Or pastor, why do you call me young king? And you speak something into their lives. And not only speaking it, but when we do it, they say, wow, okay. So by those 3 principles, though, it sums it up, though, what we do.
So can you talk about the lives that you've actually seen changed and transformed? The testimony, if possible.
I've seen a lot of good things, but you know what? I'm gonna say I can't have favorites, but I'm gonna say a kid that I've seen his life change completely. It's this kid by the name of Freddie Green, and hopefully he sees this. Freddie Green, he didn't have the best upbringing. His father was never there, but he came to us, and I watched Freddie go from this kid who, really wasn't, into school, really wasn't into anything. You know, gangs were recruiting him. I watched him go from that to where he is now, and there's a situation that happened. One of his best friends overdosed, and he had to see it. But I watched this kid go from not really believing in a higher power to saying, you know what, I think God has some plan for me. He went back to school, and he thought he was going to fail his placement test to get back into school. But when he went there, he was reading at such a high level that they hadn't seen someone at that high level in about 10 years. So, but we've watched that young man. He's not even a kid anymore. He's a young man.
Wow.
We watched him grow, and I hope the world remembers that name, because he's going to be something very
Absolutely.
soon, very soon.
So you see them as world changers, correct?
I think they are world changers.
Absolutely.
I think they are. I think they are.
So what are some upcoming goals that you all have for the youth that you work with?
Well, initially, we just wanted them to, you know, make it through high school. But that's not enough anymore. That's not enough. So we want them to go further. And if they don't go to college, then we want them to have a plan, and we help them with that plan. So we don't say, you need to go to school. We say, no, what are you good at? Young man,
That's
young
right.
queen, what are you good at? Let's figure that out, and let's aim you towards that. And we have a goal set. So this is where we want to be in 5 months. Let's try to get our ACTs or SATs done. Let's try to get a 21. Let's try to get a job. You know what? We'll even help you get a car. So those are the goals that we have. And while we give those earthly needs, we also give them the spiritual need. We also give them the water that Jesus produces, in hopes that that builds character. So those are the goals. And for each child, for each youth, let me say, it works differently. So what works for one kid is not going to work for the rest.
Well, thank you so very much, Pastor Pirtle, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us on Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Beverly Boucher Moore, and today I had with me Pastor Andre Pirtle, who is the director of Rainstorm Youth Rescue, where our topic for today was youth from being rescued to reigning. Take care and God bless.
Oops. Uh-oh. Sorry.
Get on top of it before they do. Every 24 minutes, tipped furniture or a falling TV sends an injured child to the emergency room. Preventing tip-over incidents is easy, inexpensive, and only takes 5 minutes. Learn how to secure your furniture and TVs to protect children at anchorit.gov.
Did you know there's only 5 northern white rhinos left in the world? It's sad. At the San Diego Zoo Global Wildlife Conservancy, it's our mission to save animals from extinction. So cute. With your help, we believe anything is possible. Rhino! Rhino! Rhino!
Hello and welcome to Joy in Our Town. I am your host, Beverly Boucher Moore, and today we have with us Krista DeBoer, who is the Executive Director of Center for Urban Teaching, Inc. And our topic for today is preparing and supporting urban school teachers. Welcome, Krista.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here today.
Well, thank you for joining us. So can you tell us a little bit about who Krista is and how you found yourself working in this capacity?
Absolutely. So my journey actually began when I was an undergraduate at Wisconsin Lutheran College. That's kind of where it started. I was actually approached by one of the founders, Dr. Ray Dussault, who was also a professor at the college at that time. And he said to me that he thought I had the dispositions to serve in an urban setting. Now, this came as a complete shock to me. I actually grew up in central Wisconsin.
Okay.
I'm from a town that is a booming metropolis of a whopping 500 people.
Awesome.
So when he first said to me, I think you should consider teaching in the inner city, I really didn't even have an understanding of what that meant,
Yeah.
and didn't really see myself serving there, thinking, what could I possibly bring from my background in order to serve in the schools and serve our city's children. After the third time he approached me, I actually finally said, okay, I'll give this a shot. And I joined him on an immersion tour to see some high-performing schools in Chicago. And when I stepped into that first classroom and interacted with the first child, I knew instantly that this is what I was personally called to do, and kind of dove in all the way and got involved. After graduating from college, I began teaching at Hope Christian Schools.
Yes, absolutely.
In Milwaukee, yes. And after a couple of years, Dr. Dussault came back again and approached me and said, hey, we're looking at starting a summer school program to provide an opportunity for teacher candidates to put theory to practice in a program under like the guidance and coaching of the Center for Urban Teaching. So I said, okay, this sounds like a great opportunity, and helped found the summer school program, which has actually become kind of the heart and soul of how we prepare teachers and leaders to serve in our city. And so kind of dove in through that, and then eventually got an opportunity to serve in a full-time capacity at a time when Hope Christian Schools was looking to expand. And I loved teaching, love my students, love my babies, still talk to a lot of them today. They're very grown. But just getting that opportunity, and at the time when Hope Christian Schools was expanding, the thing that really stood out to me was what stood in our way. And it wasn't the typicals that you would think. It wasn't a lack of funding at that time. It wasn't because we couldn't find the space. It was because of the question of who will teach our children. And I knew that by joining the Center for Urban Teaching, I could increase my impact by preparing more people to serve children far beyond the four walls of my personal classroom. And so that's how I kind of ended up at the Center for Urban Teaching, then in a full-time capacity.
Well, I love that. And I just want to highlight something that you said is who can teach our children? Because so many people say, who can teach those children? But they're not my children, but you're right, they are our children.
Absolutely.
Wow, so can you tell me about the centers? What is the purpose? What is the core value, the vision?
The Center for Urban Teaching exists to identify, prepare, and support high-performing urban teachers and leaders. And our vision is really to become the #1 producer and provider of high-performing urban teachers and leaders, starting right here in our own city of Milwaukee. In alignment with that big vision, we're working towards a short-term vision or goal to have 500 alumni actively serving on foot in Milwaukee by 2020.
Well, I support that vision as well. That's amazing. So let's talk about urban teachers, because it's not just work and what you do, and in being a born-again Christian, it is ministry. So what are some of the challenges that you all face with working with our children?
Wow, absolutely. It is a massive challenge, with at the same time a great opportunity. As I was thinking about sharing a little bit with you about the challenges that we faced, I was recalling a devotion that I recently circled back to. In that devotion, it talks about Ernest Shackleton and his crew that he assembled for a ship called the Endurance.
Okay.
And it's said that at that time he actually put together a job description that he posted in the London newspaper that kind of went a little something like this: men wanted for a hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition upon success. And when I saw that, I thought, wow, that really speaks to some of the challenges. And if we were to post an honest to goodness job description for what it takes to serve in the city, that is a huge part of it. And so while the challenges that we face in the urban classrooms and schools today might not be exactly the same as what Ernest Shackleton and his crew faced, we are definitely facing some daunting challenges. So In our city alone, just Milwaukee is recognized as the #1 segregated city in our nation. That's a huge challenge that we're facing when we walk into classrooms. We have one of the highest jobless rates for Black males in the nation. We're one of the top 5 drug-infested cities, and we have the largest racial achievement gap in the nation right now. And when you translate that all into the classroom and kind of start to ask, so that's our city, but what does that mean then in the classroom? Well, if you take it into the classroom, it means that when you break down that racial achievement gap, if a Black male is average in the 4th grade, he'll score lower than any of his peers in all other cities across the nation. By the time he's in high school, he'll only have a 50% chance of graduating and only a 10% chance of graduating from college. So when you think about all of those dynamics that are going on, and just those harsh realities that we face, plus you add in the intense generational poverty that exists inside of the inner city, as well as a lot of the trauma that some of our students have experienced. We simply don't have the capacity during those first couple of years of teaching to waste time while somebody who's unprepared figures it out.
That's right.
During that time, the teacher suffers and the students suffer.
That is absolutely amazing. So now we see some of those challenges faced, but let's talk about the wonderful opportunities that the teachers at the Urban Teaching Center that you guys get to see and have.
Absolutely. You've probably heard the saying, without risk, there's no reward.
Yes, absolutely.
I like to say that the greater the challenge, the greater the opportunity. And so I personally believe, along with the rest of my team and our alumni, that there really is no other place that you can teach that where you have a greater opportunity for impact. And not just an impact on their trajectory given their academic career and getting them into college, but you have an opportunity to touch the individual lives of these students to help shape the character of our children. And because if you share a Christian faith like we do at Seafoot, you also have an opportunity to impact eternities as well.
So what do you believe it's going to take for our urban schools to be successful with all of the traumatic incidences that we face and our children are going through?
That is a big question.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of conversation about that right now.
Yes.
But if you go into our schools and you listen to the leaders chat, the #1 thing that they're going to say that they need in order to really continue to change the education landscape right now, it is people. It is the teachers. We are facing a massive teacher shortage right now. In our area, over the past 8 years, enrollment in teacher education preparation programs has gone down by about 30%. So if you combine that with the profound failure of our schools today, and then no one to continue to serve the children, that's definitely one of the #1 challenges that's facing is simply we need more people. We need the workers.
Absolutely. Now, some teachers are there because, maybe there's a bonus or a benefit, a student loan forgiveness, but is that even fair to the children? And let's talk about what happens when a teacher is propelled into teaching and they're not even prepared to work with urban students. So let's talk about that.
Sure. So what does that look like when a teacher enters the field unprepared? I like to sum it up with really, there's just 4 things. You see fear right away. So fear of what, I'm not going to be able to have an impact. You see frustration. You see fatigue. And then you start to see failure. And as a result, a lot of times what happens is the teacher ends up burning out and leaving the field, and the students see little to no learning at all during that year.
So now, how can students be prepared? What are some of the things that students can do, especially being faced with so many challenges?
Get involved with a program like the Center for Urban Teaching, get involved in the community. So one of the ways that you start to bridge understanding the problem and being able to actually work through it is by getting involved with students in that community. The Center for Urban Teaching's process is really simple. So even if you're not ready to engage with our organization, find an organization like ours that's dedicated to preparing teachers and leaders to teach specifically in the inner city. And some basic things that we do is just simply early recruitment. Get involved as soon as you can. Don't wait until you graduate. Don't wait until it's your first year. If you feel like this is for you, start now. Get involved early. Explore high-performing urban models. Get into some urban schools. Get into some inner-city schools and see it. Get some experience in the classroom.
Yes.
And find someone who's willing to coach and mentor you through your first couple of years in the field.
And even talking about that coaching and mentoring, there's nothing more important than being mentored by God and His holy word. So let's talk about that, the importance of really having that Christian background for teachers that are in this urban setting or any setting especially.
So we like to talk about calling versus career.
Yes.
And for every one of our participants, they feel personally called to serve in this capacity.
Yes.
This is not a career for them, this is a calling. And I think when you ground yourself in God and you ground yourself in the Word, it enables you to love students unconditionally. It's really hard to sacrifice the time, to sacrifice the energy to serve in this capacity if you don't really understand what it means to die to yourself, what it means to sacrifice for others. And ultimately I say that this profession is really hard, and if you don't enter it on your knees, it will bring you to your knees. And so that's something, and when you come in a state of humility and you come on your knees, God gives you the strength to stand and continue to do that great work that you've been called to do. And ultimately, all of this is grounded in this idea of we get to share our faith with our students.
Yes.
And so to be grounded in that, to have the joy of Christ shining through you, that makes students and their families want to be a part of it as well.
So what do you say, Krista, to that individual that's kind of feeling that little pull, that little tug, like, I think this is something that I want to do? How do they go about doing that?
Get your toe in the water. Stick your toe in the water. Get involved with a program like Seafoot and test it out. I try to remind people who are going through the preparation process and are going through their college experience, there is nothing magical about turning that tassel on your cap that's going to suddenly make you instantaneously ready to teach or lead in a school. You need to be practicing. You need to be perfecting your craft.
Absolutely.
We oftentimes, I think, we're used to just sitting in a classroom and doing a lot of sit and get in college. However, when you look at, this is a performance profession.
Yes.
And just like athletes who spend the majority of their time practicing their craft with their peers before the game day, as teachers, we need to be doing the same exact thing.
Well, thank you, Krista, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us on Joy in Our Town. I am your host, Beverly Boucher Moore, and today I had with me Krista DeBoer, who is the Executive Director at Center for Urban Teaching, Inc. And today's topic was preparing and supporting urban school teachers. Take care and God bless.